This is Toasted with Revolution News and Information. This is Exposing the Great Deception That Is the Matrix by Judge Doucette. It will be about 30 minutes later so, but I have been instructed to go ahead and let Julie and I forget the other gentleman's name. Go ahead and run this call.
Roger.
So without further ado, I'm going to pass the floor over to whoever.
This is Judge Johnson on Colorado Springs, and in the name of Yeshua, I want to call to heaven to continue opening our eyes, giving us the tools necessary in the name of Yeshua to get the things done we need to get done, and to take the land back from the water for the glory of Yahweh the Father. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach be it so, and I turn the call over to Jules and or Roger Daddell.
Well, I'll hand it off to Roger because he has more experience.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to the call tonight. Judge Brewster said he was going to be a little bit late. We'd like to start the call off by mentioning that the deception is like an onion. The more you peel a layer off, the more layers are still left in front of you to peel. And we know from the book, Fruit from the Poisonous Tree, we understand clearly now one very critical aspect of the deception is your political status. We're all presumed to be U.S. citizens, and that presumption is based on your signature on the voter registration card. That signature can be rescinded. There's an affidavit for the right of suffrage that both rescinds all your voter registration cards and simultaneously declares yourself as one of the free, sovereign, and independent Americans. It also declares that you are not the all-caps name and that you are not to be referred to as the all-caps name or anything close to it. It's called the Affidavit of the Right of Suffrage, and it is available. So you would file that you would fill it out, sign it, 3 witnesses or a notary, file it with your supervisor of elections in your county, file it with the Secretary of State because there's a division of elections at least in Florida, Secretary of State office, and you'd file it into the official public record and take a copy, stamped copy out of the public record as your evidence. 30 days later, if no one has rebutted your affidavit, your status has changed. You're no longer a U.S. citizen. And remember that there are only 2 legal ways to become a U.S. citizen. You either have to be born in the 10 square miles of D.C. or the territories, or you have to go through a naturalization process. That process includes going into a U.S. court, swearing an allegiance to the United States, Inc., the corporation, and then in 2 years, you must have someone testify you're a good character, and they may let you become a U.S. citizen. So this adds a bit of complexity because what that means is when you do check off the box that you are a U.S. citizen and you were not either naturalized or born in D.C. or the territories, what are you doing? You're claiming to be something that you're not, and that's fraud, perjury, etc. So you're unknowingly converting yourself into an enemy of the state because as the de facto sees it, you owe your allegiance to your state. Now you're claiming to owe allegiance to something else, and therefore you're an enemy of the state. So that's a summary of what we've learned about status out of the Fruit from the Poisonous Tree. Any questions about that? Anything, Julie, you'd like to add?
No,
If I may, real quick.
Yes, go ahead.
This is call board control. I forgot to mute up the board. I'm going to go ahead and take care of that now. Julie, you will not have to hit ***. Judge Johnson and our guest host will have to hit ***. Muting the board.
You have been muted. To unmute yourself, press the star key twice.
Julie, go ahead. You were
Mute
going to make
off.
a comment, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, I've not started on the book Fruit of the Poison Tree. Is that the correct title of it, by the way? I don't want to misquote that.
From a poison, right? Fruit from a Poisonous Tree by Mel Stamper, Stamper, Stamper.
Yeah, and I was, I believe on a previous call we had talked about you can download that off of the internet in a PDF file, and somebody was gracious enough to send me that link. So I haven't had an opportunity myself to read the book, so I have to defer to you on that.
Okay. We also learned that as the fraud was constructed, that is to say the de facto government was constructed, at every step of the way, including the very first step, those creating the de facto government, unconstitutional government, knew that they were potentially could be accused of and tried and convicted of treason. So therefore, what they did was create a remedy. Because at every step, if there's a remedy, and you don't personally, each one of us individually don't take that remedy, then we can be considered to have volunteered to the status of being a U.S. citizen because we're attracted to whatever benefits may be on offer. So they very carefully have created every step with a remedy, and the remedy in this case is rescission of your voter registration card. Now, we've known two people, Judge Brewster said, and now I'm hearing Greg Johnson, also free, and Hagen Smith in Florida, have successfully exited the matrix. And one of the characteristics of their experience after exiting the matrix has been that the de facto traffic officers may stop them. They then go back and check out their ID on the computer system, and then they go back to them and say, hey, have a nice day, see you later. And we're curious about why were they being released? Was it really just a chance thing or whatever? And what we've determined is that there is a database, and that database keeps track of your status and or your jurisdiction, what jurisdiction you're in. Are you in the common law on the land jurisdiction, or are you in the statutory admiralty law jurisdiction? So if a de facto public officer or official hassles a man or woman on the land in the common law jurisdiction, it turns out it opens them up once again to charges of treason. So they want to run the other way. They really don't want to have anything to do with you if you are out of the system. Okay, so that's one
Roger,
aspect of. Go ahead. Sure.
I have a question. Have we had anybody that has taken any steps to remove themselves and then found themselves in court for whatever reason, and to tell them either, like, let's say an affidavit, this is my status, I am not prosecutable in your society, and them come back and say, yeah, we can prosecute you because you are what you say you're not. and them turn around and demand proof. Because it seems like it's hard to get evidence that you're out, but if they're prosecuting you, they have the burden of proof to prove you're in the matrix. Although, I know we wouldn't use that word with them, but I try to stay away from trigger words. But do we have anybody who has demanded that is under the knowledge that they have taken the proper steps, even though they don't have actual proof that other than their affidavits, unrebutted affidavits, and the steps that they took to remove themselves? It's difficult. You're not going to get a letter saying, "Oh, hey, thanks, you just successfully removed yourself from our deceitful corporation. Congratulations and good luck." So, has anybody stood there and demanded that they produce the evidence that they're using to say that they're prosecutable in the first place?
It's a great question, Julie.
Well, I know that people say, well, how does this apply to me? And they're like, okay, well, is this a copy of your driver's license? And then they tuck and roll, right? Yeah, it is. Okay, well, we got you. Okay, but somebody who knows better, who says, no, that's not mine, that's my person's. I don't have a driver's license. There is one in my custody that belongs to, my person, but I don't have one. I am not registered to vote. I am not a U.S. citizen. I am not a citizen of the state of Texas or the state of Illinois or whatever. So I demand that you bring forth evidence to prove that I am prosecutable.
Okay, so to answer your question as directly as I can, I know of no one who has successfully corrected their status, and then has been dragged into the statutory court. Doesn't mean there aren't somebody. There may be somebody, but I'm not aware of them. What I can tell you is that what we recommend people to do to check their status, that their status has been changed, is after 30 days of filing the affidavit, maybe wait another week or two, so maybe wait 40 days or thereabouts, and then go check to see if your name's still on the voter rolls. If your name is still on the voter rolls, then whatever you did do didn't work.
Oh, I see.
Okay, that's the way you check to see if your name's been removed from the voter rolls, assuming it was on the voter rolls, then you could tell, the affidavit worked.
Would you be saying then that you could walk into court, if you were being prosecuted, you could say, check the voter rolls, I'm not on there. And that's going to prove your status.
And we believe the opposite is true, which is to say if you go in and you claim to be a free, sovereign, independent American, and the judge checks his computer database or his paperwork that he's done research on you before you entered the courtroom, and he sees that you're registered to vote and or have voted for a U.S. senator, then he's going to say, you know what, this guy, even though he claims to be a U.S. citizen, he's living his life as if he is a U.S. citizen, and therefore I'm going to ignore his claims.
Right.
We believe that's the game that's being played. Okay, so any questions about that? That is one step of the deception that we've been victims of, and removing yourself from that deception.
May I?
Yes, go ahead.
I just have a quick question. Once you exit the matrix, meaning you give up your Social Security card, your driver's license, all that, how are you able to get a job?
Good question. By the way, each one of those that you mentioned, Social Security, driver's license, each one of them is a separate contract. And you don't have to, remember, once you correct your political status to be a free, sovereign, independent American, you are the king. You are the master, and they are your public servants. And the way sovereignty works is a king. Let me give you a simple example. A king could walk around and say, you know what, there's a lake over there. I want to go for a swim. But then there's a statute, a big sign saying you got to wear a certain type of bathing suit. So the king could say, okay, I'm going to put on that bathing suit, go swimming. While I'm swimming, I still have all the rest of my sovereignty, even though I am obeying this statute that I got to wear this certain bathing suit. And then when I get out of the water, I take the bathing suit off, put my other clothes on, and I'm back to my full sovereignty. In other words, as a sovereign, you have the right at any time to put down any piece of your sovereignty and then pick it up later at any time you so desire. You are the sovereign. You are the king.
Well, and furthermore,
it's your choice.
If it's your choice, you are exerting your sovereignty by saying, I find that agreeable. You can agree with somebody without forfeiting any of your right or any of your sovereignty. So you could say, I find that prudent. I can agree with that. I'm not subject to the fines, but I'm agreeable to the terms, right, of the use of this. I'm fine with that. So I'm not subject to any of the fines. As far as your Social Security number, if you go in for a job and they say, we need your Social Security number, and you should be prepared for this. And here's why they need it, is because all businesses that got handed over to the District of Columbia, the District of Columbia created a corporation, and they handed that back to the people who used to own the business. So now you own what you create. DC created the corporation, so you now work for DC, District of Columbia. Like it or not, you do. Okay? That's why it's most prudent that we start working as subcontractors. You can 1099 me. Okay, I'm going to deal with the IRS, and that's going to save you. You're not going to have to pay half of the employment taxes, this, that, and the other. Okay, I'm a 1099. I'm a subcontractor. I'm going to sell you my time hour by hour at this rate. Okay? Furthermore, anybody who compels you to hand over that number is in violation of, I'll have to look it back up. I know I've given it to you guys before. We talked about it on the passport thing. No one can compel that number from you. No one. It is a federal crime. Okay? So on one hand, you actually do have to give it to them because you're asking the District of Columbia for a job. Okay. However, we can't be compelled into forfeiting our sovereignty when there's no other options. It's just like the Federal Reserve notes. You don't have any other option but to use them. Okay. And you also have no other option because everybody is a corporation now. Even the smallest of little businesses you might think is a business, they're all corporations, and they're all owned by the District of Columbia. Okay. So you can go either route. With a 1099, I'll be a subcontractor, or you can't get that number from me because it's a violation. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you.
In addition to your question about getting a job, this is relatively new information to us, but there is a Revolution News and Information audio session on YouTube dated September 8th, 2016, where the guest speaker is the gentleman that goes by the name KW. And I'd highly recommend everybody go listen to this thing. It is called The Birth Certificate and the Agency. And this guy tried multiple techniques to get out of the matrix, and then they didn't really work for him. So then he started to really listen to the lawyers and the judges. And to your point about what about getting a job, what he learned was that the birth certificate represents an entity, doesn't represent you. It is created by the state to represent a state entity, and then you're an agent for that entity. They consider you and presume you to be an agent for that entity. I don't know exactly upon what that presumption is based on. But he talks about a 10-step process to sever your agency from that entity. Now, an entity by definition is anything except a natural man or a woman. So it can be a corporation, a limited liability corporation, a partnership, it could be any of those things. What he says to do on this question of employment is sever your agency with that entity, because that entity is owned by the state, and create your own entity. And then you go get a driver's license in the name of your own entity, and now you can get employment anywhere. Show that as your ID. And to the point about being a sovereign and being able to put down a piece of your sovereignty and pick it up at any time, Judge Bruce Doucette decided that he did not want the hassles associated with not having a driver's license. So although he doesn't use it, he has one. Whereas Hagen Smith in Florida does not have one, and in its place, he created his own ID card, his own ID form, document, let's call it a document. He put a picture of himself on it, his address, and a couple other things. Then he signed it and notarized it and plasticized it, and that's what he uses. Julie mentioned you can also get a passport. Once you're out of the matrix, your status from the de facto point of view, the government's point of view, you are a non-citizen state national. Why are you a non-citizen? Well, because this is D.C. looking at you as being on the state, and you removed yourself from the corporation. So you are a non-citizen of D.C. You're a non-citizen state national. When you apply for your passport, you can select that status, right, Julie?
Yes. And furthermore, let's don't forget a sovereign creates their own remedy. So sovereigns create their own remedy. So let's not forget the most important thing here is that if you don't want to be an employee, why aren't we creating businesses? So you always have the option of creating your own business and doing business for yourself. And we need to be doing that, by the way. I want to encourage people to be doing that. Whatever you're doing, set up a business in your house, set up a DBA. It's untaxable, okay? Not a sole proprietorship. Set up a DBA. Put a desk somewhere in your house, okay? And start selling your time to whoever you want to. You could do that as a DBA. When you're a 1099 worker, you need a letterhead, you need a business card, and at the end of whatever period that you need to send them an invoice, and then they cut you a check. Okay, it's none of their business if you're paying taxes or not. Okay, you're tax exempt, and so is your business.
If I may.
Yes. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, along with the DBA, there is another entity that David E. Robinson has written a book about called a Pure Trust Organization that'll do the same thing. I yield the floor.
May I again?
Yes.
I was actually asking for this question came up in one of our assembly meetings. And it was a younger guy, and he was wondering, well, if I give up my ID, how can I get a job? But you guys explained it thoroughly. But one more question I wanted to ask was, you said about since you're sovereign, you can contract anytime you want to. Now, I know last week this came up about the voting thing, And Bruce Doucette, as I understood, said that it was okay for somebody to vote because they can contract when they want to. But here's my thing. If you can contract when you want to. Okay, yeah, Michael Hamilton, sorry. If you can contract when you want to, are you not just jumping in and out and in and out and in and out? And shouldn't we be doing that? Or be not doing that?
Well, let me take. Go ahead, Greg.
Thank you. Michael Hamilton's position is that you're the living man, and you're interfacing with this thing as you see fit. If you're the true living man in the situation, interfacing as you see fit, you control the contract from your end in any way, every way, shape, form, and fashion. Some people don't have I know I don't at this time have the capability, the brain, the neurons in the brain, to stand in that manner. I get what he's saying, that if you're dragged before a tribunal or something else, and you can stand on your paperwork as your court and be the judge of that court regardless of the actors within the room, that's fantastic. If you're not, I don't recommend trying to. I got out of voting back, as I've said before, August 3rd, 2006, when after 2 documentaries proved to me that the vote didn't count. This time around, 2016, doesn't make any difference to me one way or the other. Hillary would have been much worse, and I'm glad Trump is president-elect. That stays that way through the December 19th Electoral College vote. Fantastic. If it doesn't, so be it. We're going to have to live with it either way and the results either way. I plan on standing on my living man capacity and doing the best I can to wrap my brain around the rest of it, not interfacing as any more than I absolutely have to. Maxims of necessity are Federal Reserve credits and the ability to travel around without being hassled, which means there's going to have to be some great training by the municipal corporations on their agents in uniform concerning the right to travel and other things, which I do have on my agenda later once my status is recognized at the federal level by ambassadorship in the name Yeshua. Be that as it may, as far as employment, which under Title 26 of the IRC is 3401C in definition of employee, I do have some knowledge, not that I've ever been able to try because Father has forbidden me to go back into public employment. I'm out of that. I'm done with that. But he has shown me some things that you can do with a W-4 form. Michael Hamilton also has a in lieu of W-4 form that I suggest for those that think they need to work for somebody else. And again, that's up to you guys. I'm not in that position and may not be again. I'm planning on going into manufacturing here in the next year or so on something that the Lord gave me back in 1994. But there is language you can put on the W-4 form that will tell human resources not to withhold from you. And because you're the living man or living woman, you can stand on that. You can put that language on there. You can put your, hopefully at some point, copyrighted autograph in the capacity of a non-negotiable work of art on the paperwork, thumbprint, and hand it to them. And they say, what the heck's this? And I said, you're not withholding taxes. If you go the 1099 route and they're willing to do that, that's fine. I don't think Kroger Incorporated, who runs King Supers in Colorado, will accept a bunch of courtesy clerks in the 1099 capacity. Just my thinking that direction. What I would like to see is a lot of corporations downsizing and a whole lot of folk putting together non-taxable businesses and rising up on the mom and pop level, colloquially speaking. And with that, I yield the floor.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Yes.
I'm a subcontractor, and I've been a subcontractor my entire life. And there's a form that you have to fill out in order to get a 1099, and that's called a W-9. And on that W-9, you state your name and address, and you have to either give it ESN number or EIN number or your Social Security number, and then sign it. So I'm kind of curious about how to work around that.
Yes, I totally forgot about that W-9. I'm so glad you brought that up. But that takes us back.
And one more thing I wanted.
Yeah.
And one more thing I wanted to say about the 1040. I have a friend that's here in South Carolina. He files a 1040 NR, which stands for non-resident. And he claims to me that he gets everything that he's paid in the whole entire year back.
I do know that there are forms that you can do that, and I'm not sure what off the top of my head, but I know it wasn't that one. So
maybe you're right. It's been a while since we've talked about it.
Yeah, but if you are employed, that's you do need to look into that. But even on the W-9 form for a 1099 subcontractor, you can still fill that out. 000000000. It is a felony to compel that number. Period.
Right, and it's a penalty of up to $5,000 per each. But I still haven't been able to get around it because they all look at me like I'm crazy, and they're like, "Look, we've got to send this. We've got to send our 1099 to somebody. We've got to go through the proper channel." But I got you.
I would highly recommend you consider
Go ahead.
going to the website that Greg Johnson was referring to, that Michael Hamilton has, called afreecountry.com, www.afreecountry.com. And he said that on one of the broadcasts, Michael Hamilton said that there's a paper on there in case you're an employee, and then there's also a separate one in case you're an independent business person to deal with the IRS. I yield.
Thank you.
I'm going to be looking at his stuff all week this week periodically. So so I'll be able to kind of give y'all some things next week that's on there if y'all don't have time to look at it. But from what I understand, there's a lot of really good stuff on his website, the A Free Country. So let's get on there and look at it so we can talk about it.
If I could, I'd like to briefly go back to an earlier question that the lady asked about. We have a free will to contract any way we want, and what I heard it buried in the question was a concern about complexity, maybe adding a bunch of complexity to your life that it becomes too hard to manage, and we all have to be aware of that. So, but let me give you an example of the two questions that I found most common. They're coming from retired folks, and they say, "What about my Social Security benefits?" And other people say, "What about my military retirement program?" And those are separate contracts. So with the Social Security contract, both you and your employer contributed, did you not? Well, then you've lived up to your end of the contract, and now they've got to live up to their end of the contract, which is your benefits. And similarly, if you were in the military, you served your time in the military, correct? Well, you did your end of the contract. Now they've got to live up to their end of the contract. So even though you change your status to be a free, sovereign, independent American, those two contracts are still valid contracts so long as you want them to be. I yield.
Well, and that would pertain to the past and the present and the future, because when you rescind those things, get out of contract with them, it does not negate their obligations while you were in contract with them. That's still enforceable, just like a husband and wife. It was his obligation to put a roof over her head, such and blah, blah, and she was supposed to raise kids and such and blah, blah. Well, when that contract is no longer in place and it has been rescinded, neither one of those parties have to contribute to those things anymore, okay, by contract, okay? So, but she still has a right to half of what they had. He still has a right to half of what they had. It doesn't negate what existed prior to rescinding the contract. From that point going forward, it's null and void, but the past doesn't change.
I'd like to repeat that that website. It's www.afreecountry.com, and that's Michael Hamilton. And then I'd also like to repeat the YouTube video. It's Revolution News and Information. Use the @ sign, the plus sign, the initials KW. You do a search on YouTube for Revolution News and Information plus KW, and the title is The Birth Certificate and the Agency. And it's still relatively new information to me personally, but it's pretty thorough, and the individual KW mentions all of the different experiments and work he did to discover how that birth certificate was created as an entity, and how the presumption is that you're an agent for the entity, and when they bring you into court, they hope to trick you into taking the position of the trustee. And that's where most of us end up, because we don't know what's really going on.
If I may.
With that, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Toasted. That's actually one of our most watched shows on our channel. And I yield.
I believe it. I could not recommend it any more highly. It is. If you're going to watch anything, I would suggest you watch that one and read the book or download the PDF, Fruit from a Poisonous Tree. And the combination of those two things, the audio on YouTube and the book, Fruit from the Poisonous Tree, covers two of the major ways that they presume that you're a U.S. citizen and you're in the Matrix.
If I may?
Sure.
Yes.
So repeat that YouTube address, please.
Well, you need to do a search on YouTube for the September 8th, 2016. So that's 09/08/16. KW with a plus sign, Revolution News and Information. When you do that search, the audio should come up, which is titled The Birth Certificate and the Agency. And I've listened to a lot of people's theory about the birth certificate. I've heard people claim you've got to get your hands on your birth certificate, you've got to authenticate it. I've heard other people claim you've got to grab your birth certificate and send it to the alien property custodian in D.C. and all kinds of other stuff. But in my opinion, KW explains a lot of the experiments he did and the studies he did to try to figure this out. And to me, at least, in my personal opinion, it sounds very logical that his solution is a 10-step solution to sever the agency position. So once you sever the agency position, he says you can actually bill them, invoice them for the years that you were the agent and you were not paid for it. So there is a 10-step program. I still have a lot to learn about it. The 10 steps, I can't even recite them to you. And hopefully there's going to be a website that we could go to that would back up the birth certificate and agency audio track on Revolution News and Information.
If I may.
Thank you. Mr. Judge Bruce Doucette, welcome to the call.
You know, I knew you guys would take right over for me and not miss a beat, and it sounds like you're educating the people even better than I would. So, you know, you guys are doing a good job. And I now have a generator built into my truck.
Wow.
I got the sucker finished. Well, and this was not a minor project. This is a big generator. I mean, it will run welders and a couple of houses, not just one. Anyway, and I wanted this thing so that instead of taking up all the bed space and being sitting in the bed and all of that, you know, I totally took the whole generator apart, cut out the bed on the floor of the truck, and then built the thing underneath the bed, and rewired the whole thing up, control panel, remote start, everything. You know, we got some final hooking up to do tomorrow, but it's all in, everything. And that's why I was late to the call. And thank you, Roger and Julie, for doing that. But I've been working on this project for a month now, and to finally have
so that's what that 175 IQ applies to.
You know, it means I can design stuff and do it as well. And this one took a lot of welding and a lot of wiring. We had to, you know, pull this whole generator apart and make a new wiring loom for it. The control panel is neatly tucked inside the fender on the bed of the truck. Gas tank all hooked up. And the generator is completely underneath. I still have plenty of clearance, and I still have my whole bed that I can do whatever I need to with.
Nice work.
So I'll have to
design. Congratulations on that.
Well, yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing those.
Well, it's a pretty amazing setup. And, you know, now I'm going to just wire the whole truck for 110 and just live out of my truck.
There you go.
Not really, but
low overhead.
There you go.
Let's take a break here and open up the call for any other questions about either the birth certificate and agency or the correcting your political status.
And I'm going to mute Roger. I'm going to mute Roger because I'm going to try to get something to eat. I just got home and I don't know the subject, so I'll listen. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yes, someone asked for the floor. Go ahead.
Yes, that date that you gave for that YouTube video on Red News, what was that date?
09/08/16.
Thank you very much. Just located it right when you're saying it. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions?
Well, if nobody's going to step up with questions, I'm going to throw one out there. Roger or Bruce, I know you're listening. When are we giving another opportunity for marshals or judges to swear in?
Boy, that's a good question for Bruce. I'm not privy to that information.
Okay, Bruce, put your fork down.
Do I need to answer that now, or I didn't hear the question?
I didn't know how often y'all were offering that opportunity for marshals and judges and such to swear in, because, you know, I'm anxious for these guys to get oaths done. I don't know how often you guys are doing it, but we do have some people. So are we going to, can we do that? Have those people been checked through Marshall Haywood? Anyone that wants to be sworn in on the call needs to get vetted and all your paperwork from Marshall Haywood first. And yes, we will be doing that on the calls, providing somebody has, checked with Marshall Haywood first. And Toasted is supposed to have the names of everybody that she has checked that we can swear in on the call on Sunday night. With that, I yield.
I have not received anything, and this is Toasted.
Okay.
Yes, Someone else asked
May I?
before. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, I had a question as far as the organization in Texas is what's needed as far as marshals or jurors or judges. I've gotten a packet from Marshall Haywood, and I've read through it. But as far as my area, I don't want to take an oath unless I know, I don't want to be a marshal if they need judges. I don't want to be a judge if they need jurors, as far as that goes. I was looking for some information on that. And also, I was curious about an update of how the participation went as far as the marshals going to Lubbock, Texas this week. I yield.
Okay, where are you? What area of Texas are you in?
Brazoria County.
In what?
About 60 miles, Brazoria County, 60 miles southwest of Houston.
Southwest of Houston. Okay, all right. And I'm in the DFW area, and I am the registered name holder of the name that's being prosecuted in Lubbock. And just an update on that is that they did move it from the judge who had me assaulted by 5 men. And so it appears that we have a judge who I believe, and I think Roger agrees with me, that thinks he is constitutional. And I think we have an opportunity to educate him. However, I was in that courtroom to administrate on the 9th, and they had 4 people in there with I'm sorry, it was 6. They had 6 people in there with guns, and they only had 4 of us. They only had 4 defendants in that room. And when I walked out, several of them walked out and rode 3 of them rode down the elevator with us. We made a detour to take care of something else, and by the time we got down to the exit, several of them were down there by the exit. So I don't know what they're up to there, but and I have someone on the phone who was there with me. If you wanted to, you could speak up. And but it is apparent that he does seem to want to hear what I have to say. I think he's very interested in what I'm doing and how I'm handling this case. So when I was in Oregon working on the Bundy, the last couple of weeks of that trial, went ahead and told Marshall Haywood, don't worry about it. I feel like everything's under control. However, because there were so many guns in there, I'm not sure what we'll do in that case, but I do have the opportunity to be in that courtroom by video instead. So that's where we're at with the Lubbock thing. But
so, Julie, could I just try to summarize what I just heard you say? So you're planning not to attend in flesh live. You're planning to do a video.
Well, and the problem is, yes, that's what I told them on the 9th, but most likely I will be there because this is going to be a really important. It's going to be a motion hearing, and it's on December 15th. And the case that I had stepped in to help with, which is why they jumped me, actually is on the 14th. And that's in front of the judge that's kind of scary. So not kind of, she is. Anyway.
But I'm just trying to get clarity, real good clarity.
I'm most likely going to be there on the 15th because they are going to be hearing my motions. They're going to be hearing all my motions, and although I could argue them over the phone, I'm inclined to think that my presence there would add some emphasis. So.
Okay, but Julie, this guy just needs to know if his services would be required to help on that date in Lubbock.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not exactly sure that I want to be in there unless I do have marshals to be there. So I'm kind of like.
So the answer is we don't know, right?
If it's going to be there, yeah. If people are going to be there, then I think it's better that I'm there to argue those motions so that people can see how we can go in and administrate.
Okay.
Well, Julie,
so
you just
leave it this way.
Well, Julie, you need to get with Marshall Haywood and have her put a detail together then if you're going to go. I yield. Sorry, Roger.
Right.
Didn't mean to step on you.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Right.
The second question he asked,
Roger, about separately.
Okay. The second question he asked, Julie, is whether his services would be better offered as a Continental Marshal or Superior Court judge or grand jury administrative investigator. In your opinion, for what you know about what's going on in Texas now, what role do you think is needed more than the others?
Well, I would defer to Marshall Haywood on that because she has all the information, but my preference is that we bulk up the marshals. If at some point we want to shift some marshals into a different arena, obviously we need both, and I would recommend that you pray about it. What you feel most compelled towards, that's what I would do. But I personally, from looking at it myself, I would like to see the Marshal Service bulk up so that other people will know that the enforcement is there and that you're safe to step up. And if you have any concerns or reservations, probably shouldn't use the word safe. I want to rescind that. If you have any reservations about taking any of the other positions, knowing that the Marshals arena is bulked up, we'll get rid of those fears, and we'll be able to very quickly fill any positions. Now, Marshall Haywood may have a different opinion because she has statistics to look at of how many we have of this and that. So, but ultimately, you guys please be praying about what position to take.
And just let me add my 2 cents worth there. From everything I know, I would recommend, as Julie has, you consider the marshal as the primary one first, and then later, if necessary, you can switch over. But our plan and our recommendation is for each county to move forward with We the People in Assembly meetings, and we'll cover that on a different session, but fundamentally, if you go back in history all the way to the Mayflower, when we needed to take governance decisions, we met, and we didn't meet in Tea parties or Republican parties or Democratic parties. We met as We the People in Assembly meeting. And that's going to be a nonpartisan effort for the people in the county to come together and reestablish their constitutional county, their de jure offices, and then propose, debate, and amend resolutions that become the orders to the county government. And that's the way we're going to recenter the counties under the Constitution. Once we get enough counties recentered, we can recenter our state. And once we get enough states recentered, we can recenter the United States of America. I yield.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Julie, I'd recommend you consider getting contact information, maybe giving him your email or something, and so you two guys could at least get linked up.
Yes. Let me give you my number.
Julie, I have your number. I've texted you once before, and you referred me to some information, but I wasn't aware of what might be needed. In my area, and and you've answered that as far as contacting Marshall Haywood. And I was just curious about whether or not there was enough support in the Lubbock situation this past week, but you answered that as well, and thank you, and I yield.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'd like to mention, tying back to the reason for the call, we talked about the deception. We might call it the Great Deception. It's probably led to the largest fraud in human history, in my opinion. And what we need to be alert to is something that I think we discussed a bit last week, and that is that, in essence, what happened in history, in a nutshell, is that the government that the founders formed, that at the time they called it the general government, we refer to it as the federal government. We wake up in 2016, and that government is a corporation. It was formed initially as a corporation in 1871, and that corporation, we don't even have any clue as to who really owns it. We know it's not we the people. We know it's private banking organizations and whoever they allow to invest in it. And we know that it's a private corporation, and we cannot get any of the information about the board of directors of the corporation, the shareholders in the corporation, the charter, and the bylaws of the corporation. It is our understanding, although we cannot find evidence to support this, that corporation, United States Inc., all caps, is in Chapter 7 bankruptcy now, liquidation. And that the Federal Reserve Bank had a 100-year charter granted to it in 1913, and in 2013 it expired and was not renewed, and it is in bankruptcy proceedings. And the bad news is, behind the scenes, that there was a Grace Commission report published under the Reagan administration which told us that when we send our income tax payments into the federal government, our federal income tax payments, that they don't, in fact, go into the U.S. Treasury. They go into private corporate treasuries, starting with the IRS, which is a collection agency for the IMF. So what we learned as a piece of anecdotal data from Judge Anna was that Jacob Rothschild has stepped in and has graciously decided that he would fund the day-to-day operations of the federal government and our military without a long-term contract, with the intent of positioning himself to be able to secure a long-term contract. And that they have created a new corporation in France called the New Republic, and that the rumor is that they've created a new currency that is going to be backed by gold or silver or some other set or basket of precious metals, that in fact the gold and the silver were taken from our parents' and our grandparents' generation. So we went online to try to find which court were these bankruptcy proceedings taking place. We wanted to follow them and understand who's making these decisions and how are they deciding these critical choices for the future of our country. And we can't find it anywhere. We tried Google, we tried Bing, and we just can't find it anywhere. So I called Anna back and said, Anna, this is kind of strange. We can't find any evidence of any bankruptcy proceedings in any U.S. court, international court, world court, anything. And she said, well, these things are not processed by courts. They are between countries, and they are negotiated privately and agreed to by treaty. So all of this is being done, and the future of our federal government, who is actually going to own it, is currently being negotiated privately behind the scenes, and you and I have no ability to get clarity on what the critical decisions are going to be. And Judge Bruce Doucette and I have talked about it to the extent that we think it's a bad mistake to let the global bankers back into any position of power or authority regarding the general government. We think it's very important that it be owned by we the people so that there is a congruent set of interests so that we have goal congruence versus right now, as most of you know on the call, without goal congruence, it's been a situation where, for the most part, we the people have been harvested over the last 150 years or thereabouts. Go ahead, I yield.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment on the Rothschilds. I think they would be excellent at emptying the trash and mopping the floors and cleaning the restrooms. I yield the floor.
Thank you. So I just wanted to put that on the table for discussions and for people to comprehend it, because last week we did have a discussion with one of the people in the discussion felt that short term it could be a big boon to accept this new currency and accept the new republic. And although short term it may feel good, long term it's going to lead us down a very similar path to what we've just come out of 150 years, where the federal government did not have goal congruence with we the people. So everybody needs to stay alert and needs to grab the initiative to get organized to hold we the people assembly meetings in your county and recenter your county government under your Constitution. I yield.
If I may?
Sure.
I saw a post on Facebook the other day. It says, I don't know the statute or where it is in the Constitution, but this particular post says that treaties supersede the Constitution. I don't know if that's true or not. Do you? I yield.
Yes, treaties do not supersede the Constitution. There's a phrase that I'll put out, but I don't remember exactly where it is in the Constitution. But the words are to this effect, that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So therefore, no treaties can supersede the Constitution. The liberals would like you to believe they can, but they cannot. So if there is any treaty signed that conflicts with the supreme law of the land, it is null and void, even if it's approved by the Senate.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Article 6, the supremacy of the national government. Article 6, Clause 2, Section 2. This Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made, under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound by, and anything in the Constitution or the laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. Now, it would take me probably another 90 seconds to 2 minutes to reread that, stipulating the proper nouns in that particular paragraph. I'll leave that up to you guys.
Well, I'd appreciate if you'd go ahead and help us comprehend what you believe those words mean.
Well, as we all know, proper nouns have a different definition than their lowercase, like a capital P person and a lowercase p person are not the same definition, just like the same thing with the term citizen. So you have this, which obviously starts a sentence, so it's got to have a capital T. Constitution with capital C, and the capital L laws of the capital U, United, and capital S states, which shall be made in capital P pursuance thereof, and all, with a semicolon and the term and, so that's an interesting way of setting that up as an English situation. All capital T treaties made or which shall be made under the capital A authority of the United States, the U and the S capitalized, shall be made supreme capital L law of the capital L land, and the capital J judges in every capital S state shall be bound thereby. And with a comma after, yeah, that's a comma after that, and it says any capital T thing in the capital C Constitution or the capital L laws of the capital S state to the capital C contrary notwithstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, the Constitution is replete with proper nouns. I yield the floor.
Well, so, Greg, if you could, though, help us comprehend what you believe this means relative to the standing of the Constitution itself versus a treaty that might be approved by the Senate that conflicts with the Constitution.
Well, since I'm reading from what is supposed to be the de jure Constitution, 1787, with the Bill of Rights, 1791, and then that being vacated for the 14th Amendment system that came in 1868 and finalized in or around 1871 as the Municipal Corporation on District of Columbia per Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, that there is essentially being stretched and pretended into something that is not supposed to take place.
Well,
okay,
I did speak to a guy when I was working the Bundy case in Oregon. It was like 2 or 3 days before the before the verdict, and he studies the Constitution and has for, I think it was like 16 years, microscopically, literally. That, and what he has informed me is that that is not the original Constitution that you're reading from. I wasn't aware of that, but there are
Actually, you're correct. Actually, you're correct. It's the Hickey Constitution of 1825. I said corrected. I forgot about that. The original burned in the war in the D.C. invasion of 1812.
So,
forgot about that.
Judge Johnson, which one are you referring to then? 1825?
Yeah, there's James. Guy is supposedly, as far as I'm aware, named James Hickey. He put the body of it together from pieces of history he had, yet the original burned in the War of 1812.
Okay.
So I forgot about that. Piece of our history.
I would make the following argument, ladies and gentlemen, regarding the question of how would we comprehend a treaty that conflicts with the Constitution? The words that are used in what Justice Johnson just read to us is, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States. So if a treaty is made under the authority of the United States, it must be compatible with the Constitution, because the Constitution is the supreme law of the land of the United States. So, therefore, if a treaty is made that is not compatible with the United States Constitution, then it would not be under the authority of. It would be under the color of authority of. And that's how I would think we would interpret those words as best I know, and I'm not an expert in it. Are you?
I concur with that up to the point of the usage of color of authority, because I would like to eliminate color in its legal lawful usage completely.
Do you have anything you'd recommend? Do you have anything that you would recommend to use as a substitute?
I'm not sure I would want to substitute anything for color.
Okay.
Black and white works for me.
So then, if I understand what you're saying, then you're arguing that any treaty that is proposed or adopted that is written under the authority of the United States, by definition, must be compatible with the U.S. Constitution for the United States of America.
That would be the idea. Anything that isn't, even if it is ratified, is nullified on its face by virtue of its conflict. Just like Marbury versus Madison, 1803.
So you and I
the only problem with that comes up with Hale versus Hinkle in 1906, where the Supreme Court ruled that just as it says in Article 1, Section 10, that the Constitution shall not impair the obligation of contracts, which means, to me, this is just my take on that, that the living man or woman can contract as they see fit. And it's up to and it's apparently by virtue of this whole dang mess and the issue that Melvin Stanford points out in his book, Fruits from a Poisonous Tree, that all they have to do is provide the remedy. They don't have to tell you about it, which means it's up to us to go hunt it down. Now, I disagree with that completely, because all contracts on their face are supposed to be fully disclosed from both sides in order to be a lawful contract. But they're not into lawful contract. They're into legal contract, which apparently to them means we can offer you this. If you decide to decline it, we can hold a gun to your head and try and make you sign it, and coercion doesn't matter, doesn't vitiate anything, because it's legal, not lawful. We don't have to tell you anything because it's legal, not lawful. Therefore, if you decide not to contract with us, that causes us a great problem, because we can no longer hit, as Tim Danron has put it, hit your bond. And they prefer to hit our bond. They want the double payment. They want the private payment and the public payment. So how to resolve all that mess is something that right now I'm still trying to wrap my brain around, and I yield the floor.
According to my comprehension of Article 1, Section 10, the words that I read are, or law impairing the obligation of contracts. So they're talking about no state shall pass a law impairing the obligation of contracts.
Precisely.
Right. It doesn't say that the Constitution can't conflict with the contract, but no state can pass a law that interferes with the obligation of contracts. I would assume that if a contract conflicted with the supreme law of the land, it would be null and void.
One would hope.
Okay, any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I've got a comment to that. You know, anything.
Oh, no, this got to be a form of a question. This is Jeopardy again. Forgive my sarcasm, folks.
Anything that any contract, treaty, or even a constitution that impedes our free will or our inherent rights is null and void. And that was a comment I wanted to make. I yield.
Because the Constitution doesn't guarantee anything. It's supposed to support our what is known as unalienable rights. It doesn't guarantee us anything.
I agree with that, but I'm just saying any treaty that would take any of our rights away or that would conflict at all would be null and void.
Concur.
I agree.
Carried.
Any other questions or comments, folks? Julie, anything you'd like to add?
No, nothing on that subject, but if y'all have exhausted that for tonight, I may have somebody that might want to add some stuff on a different subject.
You have the floor, Joe.
Okay.
Sure, go ahead.
I did have somebody that put a lot of time into the 5-star passport and has some very interesting stuff. I'm very interested in hearing it. So I'm just going to ask if he's on the call. And Tom, if you're on the call, can you let me know? Okay, so maybe he's not on the call, but I'm scheduled to. He was going to try to be. I'm scheduled to speak to him tomorrow. So if next Sunday, if we have time to back up a step, and I'd like to introduce some research because we had asked for people to do some research, and anyway. That's why this guy had contacted me. So anyway, I'll glean what I can from his research, and hopefully be able to have him on a call in the near future. I just wanted to give him an opportunity to put some of his research out there, and I'm excited about it. So.
And Julie,
Julie,
if I may.
Yes.
It sounds like you had some people that were willing to swear in tonight, and we were originally going to try to swear more people in. However, we got our hands, both Roger and I got our hands slapped last week from Marshall Haywood because, and we had said this the week before that anyone that wants to be sworn in needs to go through Marshall Haywood so that you can get vetted and she can get you all of your paperwork and stuff. So if we have any people tonight that wanted to be sworn in, please get with Marshall Haywood and let's set that up for next week. We will be swearing people in, but we do have to make sure everybody goes through the vetting process first. And with that, I yield.
I want to make sure that we have some time next Sunday, and that'll. I'm going to try to get these people run through Marshall Haywood. She's been a little difficult to reach, so I don't know if we can maybe. I hope it's because so many people are calling her wanting to get vetted and get through that process. So we may need to consider getting her somebody reliable to help her. But also, I do have somebody.
He's working
else.
on that.
Okay, good. I also have somebody.
She's been working on that. Oh.
Okay. That I want to just throw out there. Had some really interesting stuff on the enactment clauses, and so. If anybody's interested in hearing a little bit about that, I think that's a big thing because they are using. Most of us are awake. I have found it wasn't how it started with me, but because they started doing these bad things to people, and they started realizing, whoa, this isn't right. So. I also want to, if anybody's interested, have somebody come on and kind of dump the research that he's done on enactment clauses, which is really fascinating. So anyway, whatever you guys are interested in hearing about.
If I may, for one quick moment. No, it's Greg. Back this up just a wee bit. I'd like to see grand jury administrators vetting grand jury administrators. Marshall Haywood is doing a fabulous job with the Marshall program. Keep that going like it is, and have her and whomever she chooses to help assist her vetting the marshals, and the judges vet the judges. I lay that as a proposal on the table at the moment.
I like that.
I think that's a reasonable a reasonable suggestion, and especially as Marshall Haywood gets busier and stuff, I would very much agree with that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'd like to heap her on the marshals thing and separate the judges. Judges should be vetting judges as a whole, and not having the marshals, not having Marshall Haywood vet judges as such. I trust her beyond any comprehension, but as we grow this thing into ridiculous sizes that we're hoping to do, I think it would be a great idea to keep the three parts of that separate, and each part vets itself, and hopefully we can handle that as such and not overwhelm any part of it with more people than it already has.
Well, the only flaw that I see with that, and that's why we were going through Marshall Haywood, is because she has access to NCIC databases and stuff to be able to vet people.
I have that as well.
Well, and
okay. Well,
let me modify my suggestion a hair. Have the last step of the vetting process be the NCIC to check and see what the corporation says about the individual if we're going to have that a part of the equation.
Well, I think Julie just answered the question because she's a Superior Court judge and she's got that capability. Okay. So, the judges can vet themselves then. That's fine. And that does leave Marshall Haywood free to concentrate on more marshals. So I like that idea.
Yeah.
Roger, your opinion?
Yeah, I like it. And if possible, I'd like to move the subject matter back just 3 or 4 minutes to what Julie was talking about.
Yeah, and I wanted to too, so go ahead, Roger.
2 quick comments, Jules. One is, if possible, could you bring us up to date on what you've learned about your 5-star passport? And then the second is you might want to let the folks know what is the definition of an enactment clause and what is its importance.
Okay. Well, on the 5-star passport, I just briefly spoke to him the other day when I didn't have anything to take notes on, and so I'll know more tomorrow. I'll be able to I'll be able to give y'all whatever he gives me. I'll pass that on. That's what's exciting to me, is because I haven't had time to verify anything on that passport, and I had kind of put out a request for people to volunteer to focus on that so we could take that apart quicker. And so anyway, this guy has been doing this for years and had his 5-star passport for years. So I'm excited about what he can teach us. So I'll know more tomorrow. But the enactment clause is, and I'm going to be speaking off the top of my head, but for I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with positive law. Basically what has to happen is a law, what we're talking about, a real law, has been taken from the way it was written, and it was codified, however you want to say it. But for them to do that and to turn it into a title, they had to repeal the law itself first. And then certain steps had to be taken for that to become a code, a U.S. code, or a title. And none of these have what is required of them. They have to have an enactment clause on the face of the title. It has to be read on the floor of each house on 3 occasions in its entirety. They have to have proof that it was. And the enactment clause goes up at the top of the page. It'll be a couple of lines down the page. But it tells who wrote it, who it applies to, okay? And without that, it's never enacted. And therefore, it's not ratified. So I'm not perfectly eloquent on all the fine details of it, but it should also have the proper signatures at the end of it as well. So, and none of these titles, let's look at Title 18. It doesn't have the enactment clause, and it doesn't have the proper signatures on the end of it. So, and Title 18 is what they're prosecuting everybody on federal charges. They all come from Title 18. So I would like to get that guy on one of our calls and have him give us his studies. He has been very pointed in his research on that. He's very well versed on it. I'd like y'all to hear it from him directly. And so both of those subjects. So
let me add one. Let me interrupt just for a second, Julian.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Roger.
And add one fundamental reason that I comprehend enactment clauses are required, both necessary and required, because we the people delegated certain authority to our government in the Constitution for the United States of America. And one of the purposes, not the only purpose, but one of the purposes of the enactment clause is to actually trace back that law to where that authority was delegated in the Constitution. So there's actually a foundational constitutional principle that supports the enactment of the law. I yield.
Well, and the law would have the nature and cause in it. Okay, so they have to be able to prove that they went through the process of repealing the law itself and then codified it. That's codified it, however you want to say it. But I do want to say that I know there's a lot of people listening to these calls right now, as well as people listening to them after they're stored on YouTube. And I want to encourage you guys. I know y'all are out there working on stuff and bumping into information, and find something that you're really compelled towards and dig into it so we can have people that are almost like little specialists in a field and get out there and come back to the table and present this information like what I'm proposing having these two guys do, So I'm just saying, don't just sit on a call and listen. Find something that you're really interested in and dig into it for us as a group, and then just ask if you could present it. We can throw it out there on the table and figure it out and process it and reason with each other about it. That we're just going to grow so much faster educationally if we do that. So anyway, if y'all are interested, I want to bring those two guys on different calls, and if y'all are interested, then I yield.
Great. Thank you, Julie. Last call here for any questions from the listeners. Any comments from anybody? Bruce, anything you want to say?
Yeah, star 6. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead, sir.
Oh, really? Hey, my name is Bob, Colorado, and I yield. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Bob. Go ahead.
Oh. Okay, you're not on speaker. Yeah. Are you guys having a meeting out here in Colorado?
Well, if you're in Colorado, we have a very big group in Colorado, the grand jury, and marshals and judges
Yeah.
and all of that. Colorado, and I'm actually Justice Doucette. I'm from Colorado, and Roger Dowdell.
So let me get some contact information. I have a buddy, too, in Black Forest, and we're Carl Lentz kind of types, alternative law kind of types, and we got traveling issues going on, and, I've been listening for a few weeks, and probably the first time I spoke up, but I've been listening to you guys, and I'm all in.
Well, if you're looking for some contact, information, let me give you Steve Nolte is the grand jury administrator in Colorado, and he actually.
And I want to file a counterclaim and all that stuff.
Okay. Anyway, do you have a pencil ready?
I want to go after him. I want to go on the offense. I don't want to be on the defense. I'm all in. I told you I'm all in. I'm all in.
Oh, okay. Do you have a pencil? Do you have a pencil, sir?
No, I have a blue ink pen on a white paper.
Well, whatever. Do you have something to write with? You asked for contact information, and I'm trying to give it to you.
I think I've heard you before, too, yeah.
Okay,
ahead.
So
I'm
you
ready.
want to contact Steve Nolte, and Steve has the email list for everyone in Colorado here. And if you
Steve Nolte, N-O-L-T-E.
N-A-L-T-Y.
Yeah. Here, I'll put mine. Are we on? I'll give you my number.
You'll have to take his number and get a hold of him, okay? If
you're private
interested,
message or something?
Well, no, just call him.
I'm all interested. I'm Carl Lentz kind of guy, Carl. You know what I mean?
He's going to give you the
I'm
number
alternative law.
Nolte.
I'm not a cop. I'm not a FBI agent. So
and that's fine. Even if you were, we're happy to help you. Okay? Because even those people need to know the truth, and somebody needs to educate them. Okay, so if you have something to write with, I will give you Steve's phone number. It's 720.
720. Oh, he's on the. I'm
he's
in
the Denver area.
Front Range. He's on the western slope. Oh no,
we
Denver?
have people.
720?
We have people on the western slope as well.
I'm ready to go to Denver.
Okay,
I'll be in Denver tomorrow.
Okay, he can give you
Castle
everybody.
Rock.
He can give you everybody's information in Colorado. Now, one thing with this call, we have to be polite with one another. So, when somebody's talking, you have to wait till they finish, and then when they say yield, then you can talk.
Oh, was
okay?
I stepping?
And then when you're done, you say, I yield, and then somebody else can talk. So the phone number is 720-499-2038, and I yield.
Okay, but don't yield. Come back. I got Steve Nolte. I won't repeat the number. Shall I repeat it? I'll repeat it. 720-499-2088.
2038.
My bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Hey, hold up. You want to know about my name? I'm Bob, Colorado Springs.
Nice to meet you, Bob.
Nice to meet you. And what I got going on is traveling case,
Well, this isn't a place to cover individual cases. This call isn't. The Wednesday night.
I know.
The Wednesday night Colorado call. Okay, the Wednesday night Colorado call. If you jump onto that one, do you have that number as well?
Dude, I'm on all the calls, believe me.
Okay. All right.
I'm on the talk show like you won't believe. I'm on Revolution News, and I'm all out there. And guess what? I'll give you guys a good praise report or whatever you want to call it. My niece that's been working with me called my other niece. I'm in Colorado Springs, in Tennessee, because anyways, blah, blah, blah. But the 20-year-old kid's been spending a lot of time in the library, and he told his mom the other day, you don't have to have a license to drive. Did you know that? It's about traveling, and he's trying to school his mom on this, and his mom happened to mention that to my girl, Cheryl. And, that's just like a praise report? I mean, it just, I never knew this kid from Adam. He's part of my family, and here I get a report, through the grapevine that you don't have to have a license to drive. Well, it just made me feel so good just to know that.
Yep. It's good to see people getting educated. Was there anything else that you had pertaining to tonight's call?
I don't even know what tonight's call was about.
This is exiting the matrix.
Just called
call. So,
no,
we try to stay on specific topics.
I don't do mortgages and all that stuff,
Yeah, no, that's okay, sir.
I do but I need to know about the mortgages and all that, and the IRS and the 1099 OID and, the certificate of live birth. That was a question I needed to ask about the certificate.
Okay, somebody jump in here and help me out.
Okay, well, do we have anybody else? Do we have anybody else that has a question pertaining to this call tonight? And we'll go ahead and move on.
No.
May I?
Yes, you may.
Yes, sir, you may. Go ahead.
Yes, I had a question for Bob. I was wondering what his favorite mixed drink. I was wondering what his favorite mixed drink was, and I yield.
He was wondering my favorite what? Mixed tank?
Great question.
If I may. If I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
I yield.
This is Dave on Illinois, Marshall Dave. To the gentleman who is asking all those questions, give me a call tomorrow, 309.
Hold up. 309, and your name, sir?
My name is Marshall David. I'm on Illinois.
Marsh David. Okay, 309. I'm going to definitely get a hold of you tomorrow.
Please do. 309 area code 230 6578.
6578. All right, bro. I so much appreciate it. Where are you?
On Illinois.
Yeah, I got some friends in Kansas too.
Okay, we're going to move on now, folks. I'm sorry, Bob. We're going to move on. Go ahead. Any other questions or comments?
How do I mute out or whatever?
We just took care of that. I yield.
Yep. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I did like the mixed drink question. That was a great question.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
I'm kind of interested in the last call on Marshall David. What kind of information do you have there, like tax information? Because I'm starting to learn about that stuff as well.
You're asking that question of Marshall David?
Marshall David.
What was that question again? I'm sorry.
Because I think the other gentleman was talking about like 1099 OIDs and stuff like that, and I want to know a little bit about that stuff as well. I'm not sure if Marshall David could cover that as well.
I'm like a lot of people. I'm just learning
I research all the time, and I'm interested. So if you guys want to network and do it together, that would be awesome.
Okay, I wrote down your number, so I'll probably give you a call tomorrow.
That's perfect. You know, I don't have any mind-blowing information or anything like that. Like I said, I'm researching this stuff just like a lot of us are. So, but I'm more than willing to, to share what I learned.
Okay, and the last four is 6578?
Yes, 309-230-6578.
Okay, man, sounds good. I'll give you a call tomorrow. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
In your research efforts, folks, don't forget to consider the site www.afreecountry.com. That's put up by Michael Hamilton, and he has 2 different papers on the site, at least 2 different ones about the IRS. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Could you tell me that address one more time? I wasn't able to write it down.
www.afreecountry.com.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Can I get those papers at his website? Not being a member.
If you are a marshal, a judge, or a grand jury member or grand jury administrator, the access is free and available. But if you're not, then you do need to subscribe.
How do I subscribe?
I don't know. Sorry. I haven't done it myself.
I see. Do you have those papers with you?
I don't have them, no.
I'm sorry, ma'am. What are you asking?
There's a paper at Michael Hamilton. You have to be a member in order to access those papers. And I'm just wondering if you have them.
I believe that when you sign up for an account, if you're a marshal or a judge or grand jury member, I believe the subscription is free, and if not, then it's $30 for a year, I believe. And I may be misquoting him, but
I hear it up. It's fucking gross. It's the same to me.
I'm sorry. If you're not talking, please mute out.
Is it $30 a month or $30 a year?
$30 a year, and I'm going off the memory what Mr. Hamilton had told me when I spoke to him. So I believe I'm correct on that. But it should be a simple thing to sign up.
I thought you said $30 a month.
No, a year. But when you sign up for an account, it'll correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, we're going on an hour and 52 minutes. I'd like to ask all questions, comments. Anything else from the hosts?
I'm all good.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Justice Johnson and Doucette. Appreciate it.
We're going to call it a night.
I'd like to thank everybody. Yep. I'd like to thank everybody for participating. Bruce, why don't you sign it off?
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Sorry I was late to the call and didn't participate that much tonight, but Roger and Julie did a good job with things. We'll see you guys back here next Sunday night. And remember, anyone that wants to be sworn in as a Superior Court judge, a marshal, or a grand jury administrator, please contact Marshall Haywood. Her number is all over Facebook and the Internet. just in case somebody needs it, I will, let's see, Marshall Haywood. I will give it out real quick. Unless somebody else beats me to it, I got it now. It's 404-640-4279. And if you miss that number, you can always go to Revolution News and Information and re-listen to the last part of this program. I would also like to encourage everyone, please, Revolution News and Information pays for all the bandwidth to record all of these shows, to get this information and make it available to you guys at your convenience. So please donate, even if it's $1 or $5 or $20, whatever you can afford to do. We are so grateful that they step forward and record all of these programs for us. And with that being said, good night, all.
Good night. Thank y'all. Thank you, Roger.
Call recording off.
Anybody still there?
Yeah.
Still here.
Yeah, this is Toasted. Sorry, I was greeting my wife. She got home. I'm going to unmute the entire call board, and y'all can talk to each other freely as you want.
Julie, are you still on the phone?
Does anybody know how to how they file a notice of removal to federal court?
You don't do it by yourself.
What do you mean? Notice of removal to federal court is you're removing the case from state court to federal court.
Oh, I thought there's something else. Never mind.
No.
I got to get in and turn off the conference recording on Free Caller HD. I'm doing that now. Usually these calls last a little bit longer. That was interesting.
Well, I think one of the speakers didn't do the normal count off, and he didn't tell everybody how to unmute. So we did have like 2 questions come in, but other than that, it was just like, I guess,